Gracias. Los últimos que van llegando toman asiento. Sé que es difícil ahora después de una pausa de café, pero venga, vamos a concentrarnos de nuevo. Tenemos una ponencia súper interesante. Seguimos ahora con Barcelona Fashion Summit y lo hacemos con una mujer que sabe muchísimo. Nos va a aportar datos, insights, tendencias sobre consumo en la industria global de la moda. Ella es Gemma D'Auria, responsable de la práctica de la moda y lujo global en McKinsey&Company, donde ingresó en 2005 como consultora asociada. Licenciada en Gobierno y Economía por the London School of Economics and Political Science, cuenta con un máster en Emprendimiento y Finanzas por la Stanford University. Disfrutad. Gemma, please, go ahead.
Buenos días, buongiorno. Thank you very much, Modest, for having me. Thank you, Pilar and Christian. It's an honor and privilege to be with you. No tengo suficiente fluidez para hacer la presentación en español, so I'm going to do it in English. Hope you'll forgive me. I'm going to talk to you today about some of the key insights that we have developed through our State of Fashion report, which is a report we publish every year in partnership with the Business of Fashion. And I'm going to do, this is the 10th anniversary of this collaboration, so this is our 10th report. And I'm going to do a little look back and then look forward. What do we see in the industry and what do we expect to see? So, first message, we track every year 400 publicly listed companies in the fashion and luxury sector. And we measure a value creation in terms of economic profit, okay, which is net profit minus the capital charge, WACC times invested capital. And what you can see from this page is that this industry has created tremendous value. Okay, if you look at its rebase to 2010 and look at where we are in 2025, is almost 2.5 times that level. So this industry has created tremendous value. The second thing to note in this chart is that the industry is quite resilient. If you look at what has happened since 2020, since COVID, I mean, everything has been thrown at this industry, right? We've had COVID, there was a contraction of demand in China, there was geopolitics, trade disruptions, tariffs, artificial intelligence, and yet the economic profit has stayed quite resilient. However, if you look at who has contributed to the economic profit, that's where you actually see a change between 2022 to 2025. What you see in this chart is what did the fashion segment and what did the luxury segment contribute to that economic profit. And what you see here is that in 2023, 2024, and 2025, luxury has been very, very dilutive to economic profit. And fashion's contribution has declined, but the reversal has really happened in the luxury segment. Who has been winning? The mid-market has been winning. The mid-market has been winning big time. And actually what you see in this chart is how has economic profit changed from 2023 to 2025. Look at what's happening here in luxury. Look at the mid-market. And look at, the mid-market, of course, is, groups such as Inditex, Mango, Gap. And then look at the premium bridge. Premium bridge is brands like Aritzia. We have Nike. We have Lululemon in the premium bridge segment. And then you have value discount, the discount off-price retailers, fast retailing, the parent company of Uniqlo. And what you see is how the mid-market has been winning in the last couple of years. Now, in spite of the challenges that the luxury sector is facing, they, of course, still have a massive lead when it comes to operating margin performance. What you see here is how we break down operating margin performance by segment. One fact worth noting is that in the last few years, precisely 5 to 6 years, 80% of the value creation in luxury has been price-led growth. Not volume growth, price-led growth. We will talk about it in a second because this is also driving some shifts in consumer behavior which are very relevant to the industry overall. This has also contributed to the growth in the mid-market. Now, what is another fact I will give you, and then we're going to switch to moving forward a little bit. But what you see here is another fact about economic profit in the industry. This industry is a winner-takes-all industry. Why do I say it's a winner-takes-all industry? Look at this chart. This chart, basically, we plot 400 companies among, on this economic profit chart. The ones that destroy value are in dark gray. Then there are the ones that create value in light gray. And what you see here is that the top 20 companies out of 400 publicly listed companies generate 92% of the economic profit of the industry. One company generates 16% of the economic profit of the industry. Now, we started tracking this 10 years ago, okay? For the first 6 years, it was the same company that had the #1 spot on the chart. Which one do you think it was? Any guesses? It was Nike. Nike. Now, the first 6 years, it was Nike. Then you had LVMH. LVMH came up the ranks steadily but surely. In 2023, if you look at the chart, if you look at our State of Fashion report from over a year ago, what you will see is that LVMH generated as much economic profit as Inditex and Nike combined. 2024, very different picture. These are the top 20 companies. Okay? Now, what you see here is a mix of many types of different companies. You see the luxury players. You see here LVMH, you see Hermès. By the way, if you're wondering why is Chanel not here, it's only public companies. Any other companies that you may have in your mind, it's not public, will not be in this index. You see, of course, the mid-market. You see Inditex up there. You see Fast Retailing, the parent company of Uniqlo. You see the sports retailers. You see the off-price retailers. You see some of the specialty retailers. You see Pandora. You see Crocs. I don't know how many of you expected to see Crocs in the top 20. Now, what is also interesting is the staying power of the super winners. You know, of the top 20, look at this chart. 4 of them are new. 4 of them are new. The other 16, yes, they change positions, but they have staying power. This also speaks to the staying power of powerful brands. Now, let's move forward, looking forward. We always do 2-3 surveys that feed into the report. One of them is we ask fashion executives like you, what is it that you're looking forward to? What is it that you're concerned about? If you see when we ask them, what is it that you're most concerned about this year? Consumer confidence and appetite to spend, #1 concern. Geopolitics, and then disrupted trade flows, which are kind of 2 faces of the same medals. I see a lot of nodding. I'm sure these are concerns you are thinking about. Now, where is it that sentiment is the most positive vis-a-vis the most negative, and what has been the change since a year ago? So what is interesting here is that the most negative still is towards China. While we expect China to have a modest recovery, there is still significant challenges with that market, which of course is one of the two most important markets for fashion and luxury in the world, together with the US. You see India, extremely optimistic, but India is a very challenging market, very challenging market. Why? Because the dynamics of it's a very relatively immature market. Consumer tastes are fundamentally different than what we see, in other regions. You absolutely need a local partner. There is regulation, there is real estate restrictions, and so on and so forth. So the go-to-market for India is absolutely not trivial. The Middle East, a region I know very well, extremely optimistic and promising, but relatively small compared to some of these other regions. And North America, the biggest gap. North America, this is largely due to tariffs and to the point we were mentioning earlier about geopolitical instability. Unfortunately, many brands were really counting on aspirational luxury consumers coming back. What we see is that aspirational luxury consumers are coming back, but they're not buying fashion, or they're not buying luxury. Maybe they'll buy mid-market, they'll trade down, they'll go on resale platforms, they'll buy dupes, but they're not buying what they used to buy before. So massive shift in the sentiment for North America. Where is it that the high net worth individuals are spending their money? They're spending it on experience. I think we heard about it before in both of the sessions, the sessions previously. Travel, hospitality, dining, wellness. And by the way, this is not only a phenomenon in the US or in the Western world. This is the same in China. It's the same. We got exactly the same ranking of priorities across the world. So, are we optimistic about the industry? Yes, we are, but the growth rates are going to be very, very modest. You see it here, low single digit. We're a bit more perhaps optimistic on luxury, just because we do believe there is going to be a recovery. The reasons are different for each of these regions. So you cannot really compare, Europe to the US and China in terms of the fundamentals. I think one key takeaway from this page, and by the way, before we heard in the panel how hard it is to do business plans that are 10 years, forget 5 years, now 3 years. It's very difficult to make predictions in this industry, okay? Extremely difficult. I mean, just think about what happened last year and how many of you were probably off. It's, it's the same for us. The one thing, though, that I think is interesting here as a key takeaway is that this is going to be a share gain game. The market is going to grow low single digit. So the only way you are going to grow as a brand is if you take share from some other brand, if you want to beat these numbers. So where does that take us? I'm going to go through the themes. I'm going to just read the headlines here, and then I'm going to just walk through each of them very quickly. But we always identify 10 themes every year. 2 of them have to do with what we call the global economy. Then we have some that have to do, 4 in this case, that are consumer behavioral shifts. And then we have 4 that are more related to the fashion system. Okay? These are the themes. I'm just going to read the headlines and then we'll go through them. Global economy, tariff turbulence, workforce rewired. Then we have the AI shopper. They were talking before about AI. We'll tell you about what we think about this. Jewelry sparkles. Jewelry as a category is doing extremely well. It's going to continue to do extremely well. Smart frames, wearables, but in particular, smart frames. The well-being era, we talked about this earlier. Well-being is #1 priority. People say, no matter where we ask them, I want to spend on my own well-being. Even if I had less purchasing power, I would keep spending on my own well-being. And then fashion system trends, efficiency, big focus on margin, resale, the elevation game of the mid-market, we'll talk about that, and finally a fundamental recalibration of luxury. We'll go through them and, hopefully they will, resonate with also what you see. Tariff turbulence. Tariffs turbulence is going to continue. I mean, we hear it in the news every day. I don't need to belabor this point. We have a team globally that looks at the impact, but what you know, and we all know, is that apparel, fashion, and luxury has been one of the industries most impacted by tariffs globally. What we also know is that, the number one action that brands are telling us they will take to mitigate the impact is increasing prices. Now, I told you before that the growth in luxury was 80% price-led. A year ago, the brands were telling us, no, we're done. We're not going to increase prices. It's going to be 0 to 5%. But look at this. What you see here is that most of them will increase prices between 1 to 10%. Okay, we'll pass them on to their consumers. Some of them will tell us shifting production to different countries. This is much easier said than done. So this is not trivial at all for many, many different reasons. But of course, there has been already a massive nearshoring wave before. So I'm not sure how much many brands will have the agility in their supply chain to be able to do this. And then, of course, there is shipments, optimizing logistics, sourcing, procurement, etc. The second one that is super important globally is, we talked about AI before. The reality is that there is a huge focus on tech and tools and, if you will, the hardware of what AI will bring to organizations. There is very little rethink of how we all need to unlearn and relearn to work differently because of AI. This is what this is going to be about. We talk every day to CEOs who ask, how do I become an agentic organization? How do I need to redraw all my workflows? How do I need to think about, and it's not only about marketing and branding, it's about the support functions, it's about go-to-market, it's supply chain, it's everything. So this is about reshaping workforce. And it's happening in every sector. I don't think this is an industry that is particularly advanced in that, but I think it needs to be much more adaptable and faster in this dimension. Okay, now we'll talk a bit about the AI shopper. Now, we all know AI is fundamentally changing the way we shop. I think before in the panel, I think Jose Antonio said, I don't know if this is going to be the biggest wave that influences fashion, but it's going to be the one at the highest speed. I completely agree with that. We have no idea. I mean, there are many, many different estimates of what the impact of AI could be on shopping and on commerce globally. We have published a number of them. But what is clear is that the speed is unprecedented. And so what I would say here is, number one, what you see is that this is not just about search, about discovery. It's about how people shop and they think about the shopping experience overall. You also see that actually consumers are trusting Gen AI more and more, much more than the paid search. And it's interesting also that, in spite of all of this, organizations are still very tentative, There is very small pilots. People want to be fast followers. I'm not even sure what that means, to be a fast follower, when the speed of AI is what it is. So we are actually telling, our clients, get in the arena, try, test, adapt. Sitting on the sidelines and waiting where this is going, we don't think it's a good approach. Jewelry. Jewelry is having an incredible moment, okay? And this is not only, there are two reasons. Of course, you all know, particularly branded jewelry and high-end jewelry. Why? Many people see this as a much better investment. There has been this massive shift to value, but not value in the sense of, I want to buy cheap. No. Value in the sense of, make me feel like I'm spending my money on something that's worth it. Well, many consumers think jewelry is worth it. Ready to wear? Not always. Leather goods? Not always. We are seeing for the first time substitution between leather goods and jewelry. Of course, also because of the increasing prices, particularly in luxury. But what you see also here, other than the value point, is that consumers are saying, jewelry is a canvas for my individuality. I can express my individuality with jewelry. I can layer it. I can be more creative. It can be personalized. It can be authentic. So there are many reasons that consumers are gravitating toward jewelry as a category. And we estimate this growth is going to be very significant in the coming 3 to 5 years. Frames, this is a trend I must admit I don't quite understand, but it is there in the numbers. It cannot be ignored. Wearables are the fastest growing accessory category through 2028. Wearables, whether it's your Oura Ring, your Whoop, whatever fitness gadgets you like. But within that, frames are the highest, micro category within wearables. And the technology advances are incredible. I don't know if you've seen the Meta glasses, but you've seen they've just done a collaboration with Oakley, and you can wear these goggles when you ski, and they tell you everything from the speed, the wind chill factor, the wind. It's incredible the amount of information they're able to get. And this is advancing very fast, and it's being much more seen as a style and fashion accessory rather than just a utilitarian gadget. So very interesting trend on smart frames. And then last but not least on consumer, this is a trend I personally really believe in. I think it's something that many brands are not taking seriously maybe, or maybe they're taking it seriously, but they think it's for the sports brands, This is not about sports. This is about people saying, I want to spend money on becoming a better version of myself. And that means sleep, nutrition, mindfulness, fitness. And this is the new luxury. And I think brands need to be thinking about what does it mean for me? Because it's not just what people do. This is who people are. People identify with being fit, with being healthy. You may have seen there was a fun Wall Street Journal article, maybe a couple of months ago, that generated a lot of talk. And the title was, The New Status Symbol, Toned Arms. But think about that. And then fashion system. What's happening to the broader fashion system? So the economic model of fashion is under pressure. You all know this. You probably live this every day. And sourcing, pricing, and inventory challenges remain extremely challenging. Now, we believe that AI is going to help a lot also in this domain, particularly with demand planning, forecasting, being able to really produce what consumers want and are expected to demand and know more. That is going to be a huge help. That is going to be a huge help. But, we still believe that this focus on productivity is going to remain. And therefore, it is super important that in all the brands we talk about, whether they are in luxury or in the mid-market or in value, efficiency and productivity gains are top of the executive agenda. Resale. So resale is super interesting because this word used to get an allergic reaction from many brands, When you talk to them about resale, particularly in luxury, they say, no, this is not us, We can't control the experience. We can't authenticate the products. We don't want to have anything to do with it. I think it's very interesting that 2 years later, now all the brands are like, how do I get into resale? What do I need to do? Do I do partnerships? Do I have to build my own platform? Why? Why? Well, a few reasons why this is supposed to grow 2 to 3 times faster than the first-hand market. 2 to 3 times. That's massive. Why is that? many reasons. It's not only because of price. People say, no, because people want cheaper stuff, shift to value. No, that's one of the reasons. Look at this chart. This chart shows you what are the factors why people go to resale by age group. So for the 55 and above, affordability is very important, the most important. But then you go to the below 35 age group, and they go to resale because they want unique products. They want things nobody has. They don't want to buy the same stuff they see on everybody else. This is a huge driver. Another one, the thrill of the hunt. I don't know how many of you enjoy this, but you really want a product and you just go and look for it and you find it. So there are some demand considerations that are driving resale growth. On the supply side, this was a very difficult business model to make work, but because of increasing scale and advances in technology and in logistics, what we see is that for the first time, some of these players are becoming profitable. Vinted became profitable. The Real became profitable. And slowly but surely, while initially the categories that lend themselves to resale were jewelry, high-end leather goods, more unique collabs, actually this is expanding, we see, to also other categories. And so we are very bullish on resale, and we see it in the data. Elevation game. What is the mid-market doing? Why is it that the mid-market is doing so well? Well, first of all, they have really focused on efficiency, and so they've been amazing at what they've been doing in terms of just making themselves more productive. I would say much more responsive, than some of the brands in the luxury segment, for example. But here what you see is a very simple chart. We've taken some SKUs, the same SKUs, very similar SKUs across these three brands. And we have seen how they have systematically canceled lower priced SKUs and invested in higher priced SKUs. And why are these elevation strategies working? We just said it, because there has been a breach of trust by consumers towards luxury. These price increases have completely driven a wedge with consumers asking themselves, even if I can afford it, do I really want to buy that luxury goods? Or do I just want to go to mid-market? Do I just want to go to COS, and get myself three things that are nice without breaking the bank? And so price elevation, we think and brand elevation is going to continue to progress, driven, as it says on this page, by an increase in product quality. Because they cannot do the same playbook of luxury. You cannot have the same product at a much higher price. You, of course, need to have a corresponding increase in quality. And last but not least, luxury. There is a fundamental recalibration of luxury. You have seen in the last year, I think 10 CEOs changed, and I think something like 8 creative directors changed in luxury. So it feels like it's a completely new, it's like musical chairs. Now there is a completely different setup in the industry, okay? And there are some outsiders, coming to the game, like Demeo taking the leadership of Kering, and everybody's like, wow, what's that going to do to Kering? I actually think that it's great to have the change because the industry needs an injection of different thinking and different creativity. But what you also see here is that, brands can no longer rely on price-led growth. So they need to think about what matters most to consumers. And what you see on this page is that the answer to that question is very contextual. So if you are, in the US, higher product quality and craftsmanship is extremely important. But if you are in China, exclusivity or creativity and innovation in design is more important. And so it's very important that these companies don't just look at, it's easy to look at the overall average, and say, oh, that's what matters to people. you really need to invest a lot more in understanding your client and in the context, specific context, to actually be able to recalibrate your offering and your strategy. And this is also true when it comes to different types of brands. What this page shows you, I'm sorry, it's kind of a bit complex, but what this shows is the question was, what would make you as a high net worth individual buy more from a luxury brand? And you see the factors, and what you see here is that it changes. So for a global mega brand, quality and craftsmanship are extremely important. For quiet luxury brands, exclusivity is very important. I actually don't want to see you everywhere. I don't want this to be available everywhere and be ubiquitous and see it at the Olympics. And I actually don't want that. And last but not least, if you are much more of an emerging brand, innovation, sustainability will be more important. So luxury is going through a fundamental, reset. We will see what this will bring in the coming years, but we are quite excited by the opportunity these brands will have to reinvent themselves in the coming 12 months. Thank you very much.